Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on teaching during the pandemic. I'm sure it's a topic of great interest for a lot of us, especially in the education space. We have a lot of attendees who are still joining in, but I would quickly like to welcome our panel members. We are very honored to have Dr. Kuldeep Singh, Dr. Satyendra Gupta, Dr. Madhavi Lokhande, Dr. Chaitanya Kumar, and Professor Sapna Shiv Kumar with us today. A brief intro about each of them. Dr. Kuldeep Singh is the Dean Academics at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Jodhpur. He's also the academic head for the School of Public Health at AIIMS, Jodhpur. He is interestingly involved in developing innovative curriculum and implementation, which is titled as AIIMS Jodhpur Model of Medical Education. He and his team have validated and used the flipped classroom methodology and have used the audience response system in different scenarios such as UG teaching, symposia, and conferences. He has a super specialization in medical genetics and is committed to using innovative technology to enhance student learning. So that's briefly about Dr. Kuldeep Singh. Hello, sir. Welcome to the webinar.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. We have Dr. Satyendra Gupta, who is Professor and Dean of School of Education in Galgotias University. He has about 23 years of experience teaching and mentoring in the education space with students in B.Ed, M.Ed, and PhD. He is associated in various capacities with NIOS, NAC, NCERT, and Army Institute of Education. He has 15 research papers and 2 proceedings publications and has presented more than 30 papers in various seminars. So a seasoned educationist. So please welcome Dr. Satyendra Gupta. Welcome, sir. We have Dr. Madhavi Lokhande, who is the Dean at Wellinger Institute of Management and Development and Research. She's been a mentor for the ISB Goldman Sachs 10K, is the founder of Padai, which is a charitable trust that promotes the cause of inclusive education, is a co-founder at Imagilytica that curates learning programs using the philosophy of kinesthetic learning. She's been awarded for excellence in contribution to medical management education by the Higher Education Forum, and is also the Vice President of Homepreneurs Council. So please welcome Dr. Madhavi Lokhande.
Thank you, Swapna, and very good afternoon to all the panelists and all the participants.
Thank you, ma'am. We have Dr. Chaitanya Kumar. He's the principal of the prestigious PES Institute of Technology and Management, Shivamogga. He's the member of the Academic Senate of VTU and has been a member of the Governing Council on several engineering colleges. He's the recipient of the first Kosala Research Award for the best research work at IIT Roorkee. He's been awarded the Best Principal Award in 2016. He's an avid researcher, has over 26 research papers in national and international conferences. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you.
We have also Professor Sapna Shiv Kumar, who is the principal of Mysore School of Architecture. She's an architect and urban designer by profession with a primary interest in academics. With over 25 years of professional experience, she has taught in various schools of design in Bangalore and Mysore, engaging with creative young minds and developing pedagogy that inspires novel thinking processes. That's what Professor Sapna, loves doing. Her area of interest in research is vernacular architecture, and she's currently pursuing doctoral research on vernacular residential architecture of the old Mysore region. So an interesting field there. So welcome, Professor Sapna.
Thank you, Swapna, for that introduction, and thank you for having me on the panel. And I would firstly like to congratulate Origin Learning for coming up with a topic that is pertinent to this time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So just to punctuate, we have educators who've been in the front line of dealing with how to educate students during the pandemic. These are people who have handled it firsthand and have done whatever they could to keep students learning, even as schools, colleges, and everything else shut down during the pandemic. They all come from different domains of expertise, which is one of the reasons we wanted to have them on the panel. How do you teach architecture versus how do you teach medicine versus how do you teach engineering to management? I think that's the experience we want to hear from them. So welcome again, all of you. Honored to have you on the webinar. So before we go in with questions for them, for a lot of you who have answered the survey questionnaire that we floated some time back, there have been a lot of respondents for the survey itself. The survey had a similar title, Teaching During the Pandemic. And the reason we chose to do it is because we've heard a lot about how students are coping with online education. What are the do's and don'ts? How much screen time is okay? How do you do effective learning online? But not a lot has been said about how teachers have adapted and quickly ramped up to completely change the paradigm to teach online. We thought that's something that we should explore and hear from people who have done it. We ran the survey and we got some really interesting insights into what is happening across India specifically. So I'm just going to share and quickly take you through some of our survey results very briefly. For those of you who have answered the survey, you will be familiar with the questions, but I will try to briefly, also go through the questions and the insights that you've gathered from it. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. So when we did the survey, and we're thankful for everyone who took time to, kind of go through the questionnaire. We had, assistant and associate professors, principals, deans, directors, and others from the education field, take like research scientists. We had people from UGC, several people who took the survey. And the insights are garnered from this wide variety of people who have, answered it. If you see, one of the first questions that we asked, of course, is what are the challenges of teaching online? And resoundingly, a lot of them said one of the foremost things that they missed was the lack of interaction among students. 76% said that, followed by how do we track student progress? That is a big challenge. Internet connectivity at their end, and also the all-important examinations. How do we conduct those without compromising the integrity of the whole process while under lockdown, and we cannot have an in-person exam. So those were the main concerns, so to say, for teaching online. But we also had, interestingly, with a significant number of people who also said that they had a shortage of, textbooks, for the students. They had issues also with the connectivity, at the students' end. So the next question, of course, was what are the challenges of online learning for the students? And this is where they came up and said internet connectivity at the students' end was a big issue. A lot of us in cities probably did not have that kind of experience. But when students moved out to their own towns and maybe even villages, I think internet connectivity seemed to be the single most biggest concern going around. Lack of interaction again among students, and there were some subjective feedback that came in, which said that in fact students were feeling isolated, they were highly distracted, were not able to focus well because of online teaching. Availability of laptops and devices. So infrastructure seemed to come up as a big concern. And like I said, the availability of textbooks. And as we go along, we'll also see that therefore, a lot of them said, if they had access to digital textbooks, that would have been a great help during the pandemic. So something to note for a lot of, at least for me, that came as a surprise because I assume that a lot of the books that are approved for the curriculum are already available in digital format, but probably not. There were areas and a lot of people did report that availability of textbooks was a problem, and therefore not having digital textbooks kind of made it harder. So that's the challenge of online learning from the student's perspective. We also asked teachers what are the tools that they used for online teaching. It was PowerPoint all the way. 93% used PowerPoint. So there is a thing that is going around where this seems to be the most reliable tool. People did distribute reading material, mostly digital, and did leverage videos, quizzes, and to a much lesser extent, about 52% used case studies. And surprisingly, not too many people mentioned apps that are available for different domains of education. They did not mention online tools that are available. So there are a lot of tools, for different domains. You have something like GeoGebra for math and graphing and geometry kind of applications. You have touch surgery for medical education. You have online apps for architecture. But we did not find a mention of use of tools or apps that are free and available online, which was a little surprising, I would say. And what are the tools that they thought would help them to teach better online? So that was the question. So there are tools that you've used, but what are the tools that you think will help you to do it better? Digital textbooks came up. I mean, PowerPoint presentations was an obvious one, but digital textbooks came up second. 66% mentioned that if they had digital textbooks, it would have been so much easier. Curated digital content. I think also people did try and search online, and the quality of the content that is available freely on the internet is suspect, as a lot of educators have discovered. So curation, I think, has been a big ask. Quizzes and assessment questions, and we are assuming this is for question banks. This, they said, was something that they would require and would be very helpful. Simulations and case studies. I think these are the other things that people felt that it would be useful for them to do. And of course, we asked the obvious question, do you think you can substitute paper and pen tests with online assessments? That was a big no. I think the concern mainly was about the integrity of the process itself. But you will see that 25% did say that there is a possibility going forward to substitute paper and pen tests, which it's in itself is a big number, I would say. Assessments, definitely a majority of them, 45% felt that they cannot substitute paper and pen tests with online assessments. And this was, I think, the biggest insight for us when we asked, would you adopt a single technology platform for all your educational needs? A resounding 82% said yes. And in a way, I think this was valid because from my own experience with my kids in school and also the experiences that I heard from others, the whole teaching process was cumbersome because people used multiple tools which were not connected to one another. They used WhatsApp, they used email, they used Google Drive, they used Zoom or some other web conferencing tool for taking online classes. There was no integrated system for taking attendance. There were a lot of those issues because of not having a platform that handles everything together. And I think 82% agreed that if there was a single technology platform, teaching would have been so much easier for them to handle. So that's one of our biggest insights from this survey and takeaway. And just to set a context of what a single platform would mean, this is an open source capability framework for higher education. But not to go into the details, but there are 4 major categories here. Demand and discovery, which is the whole admission and onboarding process for the student. Learning design, which is teachers putting together their lesson plans and how they plan to conduct and teach. The learning experience, which is on the student side, on how the students will receive it, receive the education and how well they can interact with the system. Going on, and especially very relevant to higher ed, is how will the students transition into their work life and still have a connect back into the learning system. And how do we enable lifelong learning? I think that's one of the biggest trends that we are seeing. Interestingly, at least in the US, and just to set a global context, a lot of Ivy League institutions, including Cornell, UPenn, Harvard, you name them, they all do have completely online equivalent degrees in the post-graduation space, which means the students do not ever visit the campus, but they get an equivalent degree online. And UPenn is also experimenting with one in the undergrad programs. So there is definitely a trend towards, both blended. Blended is big, but also completely online and equivalent degrees. So we are not talking about certifications, we're not talking about continuing education, but we're talking about proper degrees, which earlier were only available on campuses. And in India, in that context, the NEP also visualizes that at some point they will be doing, online courses and also blended going forward. So that's really the context, both global and Indian. But as you noticed, I think we still have a lot of fundamental infrastructure problems to deal with as we go along on this journey. So that's very briefly about the survey and the context. And I'll just pause here. To go forward, of course, the first question that I would ask all the panelists is, how did your institution adapt to teaching during the pandemic? And what worked for you, what didn't work? We thought that experience will be useful for all the attendees.
Hello. From AIMS Jodhpur, we are a professional course institute. So it is a medical institute, and there was students were sent back on 20th of March 2020, and we started with our online education from 23rd. On 21st and 22nd, we conducted the faculty development program. So how to conduct this online teaching. So it was taken very favorably by the students. Being the online, this is the first time that they are going online. So it was received very well. But the problem with some of the students having in the remote area or having not internet connectivity is not good was a little drawback. And what we found difficulty was the projection of the videos which we have prepared for some of the demo purpose. But again, today is also 7th of April. It is a World Health Day, and the theme of this World Health Day is also on the equalities among for the health as well. So I think this equality and equity for the education is also very important, and we have to consider this as a very important role of the online education. And in the coming time also, this is going to be helpful.
Sure, sir.
Yes, Swapna.
Can I come in?
Please, sir.
Yeah. I am Dr. Chaitanya Kumar, PS Institute of Technology Management, located in Shumoga. We are an engineering college, so where hands-on training is one of the most important aspects in our education. So when we got the directions from the affiliating university, Visvesvaraya Technological University, in March 2020, we had a brainstorming session, and we said that we should have a standard operating procedure to conduct these online classes rather than just float it and start off. Yes, we did have some online classes in our Android subject and MAT subject, and mobile application development. In these subjects, we do have some online classes, but then that is not the way. So we went about doing a standard operating procedure, and we arrived at 4 competencies that has to be addressed when you look at the online classes. One was the digital competency that is required. Pedagogical competency, what is the pedagogy that we need to go for online classes. And then social competency is another important aspect. And finally, we said the emotional competency of both the teacher as well as the student. Coming to digital competency, yes, as sir was also saying, we have issues in our region because this is a Mannar region, a very remote region where the connectivity is a big problem. And many times the parents are also not aware of the digital scenario, and they will not be able to help the students in other modes. If it is offline, then they come in handy for the student community. But here, in these remote areas, we had this connectivity problem. So to address that, we came out with some demo versions, and our video content did not match, as sir was saying. We did not match the content delivery that we wanted. So we had problems especially in practical demonstration of various experiments that we need to do. Then pedagogical competency, the curriculum prescribed competencies that we were practicing was a big failure when it comes to online. So we need to come up with other ways of mode of keeping the student interest through the pedagogy, and also ensure that the content is delivered to his liking or to his acceptable way. In that direction, we found that the duration of the class plays a very important part. You have for more than 1.5 hours, nobody will be interested. So we said we will have an half an hour class and then break for 15 minutes, have some activity, and the other subject comes on, and so on and so forth. We multiplexed like this, and we were able to keep the pedagogy going for the student community, whereby we did achieve a little bit of success. Again, keeping the interest of the student and the acceptance or absorbing the knowledge. When we tested during the online exam or online test, we found it was woefully way off. That means we had actually conveyed the information to the students. They had attended the classes. There are more than 95% attendance as far as the online attendance goes. But then when it comes to the answering the questions, we found it woefully shortfall. And I think offline would have been better in that respect. And this emotional competency we found was something which played very much on the teacher's mind. Imagine a teacher has to take a class in front of empty class, in front of one laptop, he sits and starts talking. When he's used to talking classes for 60 odd students who are making noise and blah, blah, all those things, There's no classroom environment for him, and he's supposed to concentrate and deliver the content. So we did simulate certain activity for the teacher to feel at home when he was teaching. In that way, the teacher was brought on the platform so that he can teach. But then the students, number of students, I ran a survey also on the effectiveness of the online teaching 3-4 times. And we found that the students kept on telling us that, sir, we would prefer to attend classes because we're not following. And yes, we had the whatever lecture is being taught, that was recorded and put on YouTube for them to view later on. But then they went on complaining, sir, that we were missing a point, we can't capture that, and so on and so forth. There's no interaction between the students. That also was a big loss for us. All this happened during the art semester, but the event semester, we did recover a lot, and the digital content that we started developing became more acceptable to the students. The monologue classes that were held now became interactive, and we have come a long way from March 2020 to now in our online classes. I feel that blended mode will be the future for our education. Thank you.
Swapna, can I come in now?
Sure.
So from a management education point of view, I think what happened in the last 1 year was a lot of learning, not just for the students, for the teachers, but also for the institutions. So I think initially, we did a lot of jugaad in terms of what should be the platform. So right from looking at Zoom to WebEx to MS Teams, because while we thought there were a lot of issues with Zooms, including the security issues, students seemed to love that while we wanted to do the sessions on Cisco WebEx. So right from, setting the expectations for the students and the teachers, that was our experience in terms of the way we started. Again, I think this also brought to the forefront, while we've been talking about Digital India, we've been talking about a lot of technology advancements. When it comes to actual practice, where do we stand? I think that was a mirror that was shown to us. And in terms of looking at how equipped our teachers are. So I can say this for sure that, there's a certain amount of glamour for these schools and management education in terms of the entire corporate interface. We take a lot of pride in saying so many corporate visitors and we have a placements. But then the reality was that when you are suddenly told that there's a lockdown, how many of your faculty are actually equipped with state-of-art infrastructure, maybe laptops with very good webcams or very good mics? I think somewhere, if we need to look at some of the best practices from the corporate, what we could learn from this, quickly they adapted, and most of the corporates had the budgets to send to their employees at home, laptops. They send them the mics, they make sure they give an allowance for getting the appropriate furniture. And at the same time, we have seen on Instagram, we've seen on Facebook, we've seen on social media, our faculty, our teachers trying to improvise, tying a phone to a pole and tying it on top of the mirror. I mean, the spirit was amazing with the teachers. But you know what? It showed us once again where education stands and what is the kind of priority we are giving. Because I'm sure the corporates probably did not even, bat their eyelids to send this infrastructure to their employees. Whereas if you look at the kind of education being like, even if the current NEP and looking at the kind of priority it gets, what is it that we are really investing in the infrastructure? These were the questions I had in my mind. So what worked well? What worked well was the adaptiveness and the flexibility of the teachers to quickly, rework and say, hey, we can do this. The spirit was amazing. I think that worked very well. What did not work well is, I think we as a nation still lack the kind of budgets and infrastructure to support our education system, educational institutions, and the teachers as a community. That is what I feel we lack. But to answer your question, we adapted, we used different platforms, we tried them out. We also tried a lot of collaborative tools and apps that you mentioned, and we figured we could survive. I think we've survived the bubonic plague, we've survived the Spanish flu, we'll survive this. But I think with the NEP around the corner, there's a lot which we need to really think in terms of how equipped the education sector and the infrastructure with the education sector in the country is. It is not merely labs, or it is not merely what AICTE and UGC says that if you have 1,000 students, have 1,000 computers in your lab. It is beyond that. And I think this generation of educators should lead this movement. So that's my point on this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I go next?
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. Supplement, please continue.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Dr. Chaitanya put it very well as to how those 4 components and competencies were judged, and how the teachers took it forward. Now, fortunately, in our school, we had a team of people who were quite proficient technologically. So when the lockdown was announced on 23rd, 24th, with very little special training, on the 30th of March, online classes were going. We did look at what should be the time frame, considering all the, the little bit of screen time, how much was the best for the student and all that. So we prepared separately for that, and it was delivered. The content was delivered. What we found as a challenge initially was, how do we take the studio subjects, which are mostly a one-on-one discussion, and it was a lot of hand-holding that you do during that process. So for 2 weeks, we held it because we were trying to figure out ourselves how that could be possible. Teachers had to spend in lots more hours teaching than a regular studio, because that one-on-one was taking a lot of time, and how to communicate in this sort of an atmosphere was difficult. Then we came across something called Jamboard in Google Suite, because we had taken Google Suite and we were using Google platform, Google Meet platform to conduct our online classes. Incidentally, you were saying there's a one-stop shop for everything. I feel Google Meet, Google as a Google Suite as a thing worked quite well for us. Whether it was attendance, marking, classroom for their submissions, keeping a track of it, all that really worked well. And we later on, we found that this Jamboard has been integrated into Google Suite also. So that way, somehow we could communicate with the students, and we had a successful odd semester. Even semester was much better than the odd, because all our learning that we had in the first 2 months of the semester, we implemented in the next semester, which was almost thoroughly online only.
Sure.
Now, ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
So I, Satyendra Gupta from Galgotias University, Greater Noida. So first of all, I would like to thank definitely this platform on which we are today connecting to each other. But before that, I would like to congratulate and thanks the IT department of the country and the whole world, because only the persons of the IT department, they made it possible to conduct the classes online. And I think the more than lakhs classes parallelly conducted on the Zooms and other platforms parallelly. And these platforms are not originated in the India, but we are using the platforms which are available throughout the world. So definitely these platforms were not meant to conduct the online classes like the countries in the India and the Middle East or the Southeast Asia countries. But we use that platform, and thanks to Zoom, because from the 16th March 2020, we started the online classes on the Zoom. As we know, in the North India last year, we had the Holi or the 10th of March. And normally students go to their home, and during that time, the informations were coming or leaking by the government that the lockdown may be imposed. So many of the students didn't turn up to the university till the 14th of March. So then management decided to go to on the online classes, and immediately from the Monday or 14th of March, and then 16th of March, we started our classes on the Zoom platform. And being a technical university, Galgotia University, as ma'am shared that we have the technical persons or the persons those who already conducted the classes or presented their seminars and other activities online. So they guided us how to conduct the classes. And within 1 day, all teachers learned how to use the Zoom platform. And then we, thanks again to the WhatsApp, which helped us to make the students group. And then through the WhatsApp, we taught them how to take the class. And I think students were the fast learner. They immediately learned how to mute themselves, how to mute other ones, how to switch off the camera, just attend, log in the class and then leave the class without opening the camera. So we the teachers, we were forced to attend the class for the next 40 minutes and keep speaking. But that was in the hand of the student, whether they are willing to listen to you or not. So these were some issues, and because I am handling the Bachelor of Education and Master of Education program, so these are less technical in comparison to architecture or engineering, or especially the medical one, which is the totally 100% practical oriented, and hence experience is required. So, but many things we learned during the last 1 year, and thanks to the system, because no single day of the student wasted without teaching and learning. Issues are there, as we are the part of the private university, so definitely we have the students, those who are those who belong to the middle class family or the upper middle class family. So definitely they all were having the smartphone, and because we were already using the ERP and the LMS as the Moodle as the LMS system. Already we were conducting the quizzes through the LMS platform, Moodle platform. So already our teachers and our students were well-versed about the online some activities. But face-to-face interaction, definitely this is the one of the challenge still today, because we are totally dependent upon the availability of the network. If internet connection is strong, so that without any interruption we can contact with the students, or same day student contact to us. If there is a low or weak connection or no internet connection, so then there is no interaction between the teachers and the students. And this is the throughout the world, everyone is facing the same problem. And till date, I think there is no solution of this type of problem. Second thing here, I would like to share with the all, and all felt that only one-to-one interaction is possible through the online mode. Suppose we 6 are on the online this time, all 6 are not parallelly can share their views. So same way when we take the class face to face and we keep interacting with the students, so sometimes whole class share their views. But in the online system, we cannot take the views of the whole student which are in the class. So some problems still we are facing. Now again, the threatening of the coronavirus. So again, we are praying the God not to come on again on the online classes, because as a teacher and as well as the student, I think both lost so much in the last 1 year in on the part of the learning. So this is this time I want to share.
Thank you. Just taking on from there, one of the things that struck me when I saw the NEP was how strongly it seemed to advocate going online, especially because it gives greater accessibility to students, to education, people who cannot travel, stay in another place, or even in terms of cost, digital can be, provided there is connectivity, digital can be, less expensive than campus education. So given a choice, I just wanted to ask the panelists, would you go and, for an online undergrad or post-graduation degree, or would you think that is still not something that we can do in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, can I comment? Basically, the time has come that there is a great reform is needed in the education system. And I think with the COVID and online education now become like at the fingertip of everybody, not only the teachers, but also the students. It is a very great time and apt time also to use this as a blended learning, because that is the time, that is the thing which is of the future. The people's time is also very precious, and we cannot restrict the students to the four-walled classroom. So it should go out. And with the flexibility of the internet and the online teaching, we can reach to the wider population, wider students, and also the students have the interaction with the wide variety of the faculty and the teachers. So I think the next big thing is going to happen is the classroom without walls. And I think this is a opportunity which has been created. And we were thinking for the last 4 years with the use of the flipped classroom, but we never made the students bring to the classroom in the online mode. But the COVID has pressurized and empowered the students to go in this way. So I think this is a way. With the national education policy, I agree that there's a reform is required, not only for the subjects which are required for the future. We are teaching the students which is not required. And I think COVID time has also given an opportunity to think, to reflect on ourselves. What is the situations for the moral values, and what is the relationships and other things, which are again very important in any things in the future, in the in the jobs also. So teaching all those values is very important. And I think the concept of the teachers moves from the teacher to the mentor. And the mentor is the concept now which is coming up. That is, mentor is that he recognizes the person, what is their abilities and what the things are required for improving those abilities. And there are some questions also we can answer later on, but I think practical also can be done through the online mode. We had done reverse telemedicine, in where the patient was sitting in the hospital and the students were sitting at their home, in a comfort of their home, and they were asking the patients different problems and then diagnosing the condition. And the facilitator was there with the patient. So patient is also safe, the student is also safe, and also it inculcate the habits of how to interview, how to ask the history, and how to take the patient's views in the public. So all these things were reinforced, and they were facilitated during the COVID time. Dr. Sapna.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to respond to that?
Can you hear me, Sapna?
Yes, I can.
I just have one thing here, which I feel is important. NEP is a policy document, and it's like a visioning document. But at the end of the day, each institution will have to figure out or decide on what is the rollout or the way it will get implemented. So be it right from getting in a multidisciplinary and integrated approach to moving things online, I think the focus now is on a lot of institutions to look at what kind of investments will they make to practically implement. It's good to say that now students will have a lot of choice, and they will have an option to go in for offline, online. Some sessions could be synchronous and asynchronous. But as institutes, I think in terms of how we look at infrastructure and the kind of investments we want to make into it, because I personally know a lot of institutions for whom investment in infrastructure is like a tick in the box to satisfy the norms of UGC, AICTE, or any of the accreditation bodies. Not to demean them, but I'm just saying that they also do exist. There are some institutions who are they don't belong to the institute category of institute of which belong to the national importance, but yet they are in the private space, but wanting to try out and provide quality education to the students. I think they are the ones who should really lead this movement and say that how we will be able to up the standard in terms of the online programs which we want to offer to students now. Today, if you pick up any of the online programs which are being offered as part of, let's say, MOOCs, or as part of any of the university setup which offers online programs, one needs to really look at it and say, what is the quality of these programs and what does a student learn from it? So just to give you an example, if I were to do a master's program, let's say in NY Stern, and I'm not a graduate from the finance, but I want to do a master's in finance, I'm necessarily asked to undergo a course, which is an online course, which will equip me and get me to a level to pursue a master's in there, right? So if we have to provide this kind of a facility, then we will have not just state-of-art infrastructure, not just qualitative online programs, but we will also have a good amount of students, who will want to stay back in our country and study these courses. So there, I think a lot of effort, not just from a government and regulators level of just implementing NEP, but at an institutional level where few of us are able to come ahead and say it's not just IIMs or IITs, but as private institutions, we could look at creating the best of online courses to provide those to the students. That is when the student will feel confident, the parents will feel confident. Otherwise, till then, it's just a matter of, mindset where I feel that, hey, it's an online course, let me take it easy. Or if I do an online course, is the degree valid? If I show this certificate, will I get a job? These are questions which students have today. These are questions which corporates also have, saying, is an online program as effective as a classroom program? So do you get a job based on that? So these are some of the issues which we will have to address. So NEP being where it is right now, I'm glad that after 30 years, 3 decades, we've even thought of looking at education and the reforms in education. But I think there's a consortium of all educational institutions that need to take a call and decide on how good we want to get at this game.
So I think one of the questions that we got also is, how do we equip teachers to kind of address some of the concerns that you've raised, right? How valid are they? How rigorous? What is the rigor of the online programs? Are they equivalent to, the programs that are offered in campuses? What is it that, we can do to equip teachers? That was one of the questions that we received, if anybody wants to take that.
Yeah, it aims. Yeah, Dr. Satyendra.
Yes,
Continue.
sir. I just one question raised in my mind. Just we were talking about the online training and learning of the students. So I just want to ask the Dr. Kuldeep, the director of the AIMS, sir, will that doctor be accepted by the society, those who are being prepared through the online classes? Will the public, will they go to their clinics to take their medicines from that type of doctors or the engineers or the architects?
No, you are very correct that these professional course, engineering and the medical, they require a lot of practicals. And especially in the medical field, the practical is the heart of the medicine. That is, unless until we are exposed to the patient, the student is exposed to the patient, a different variety of the conditions and different things, practically, it is not useful. So only online is not enough. But that most important thing we have come across about the patient, and I will just reiterate, there is a Pareto's law, which says that the 80% of the problems of the patient can be solved by only 20% of the solutions. And these 20% solutions are not practiced at all. Like vaccination is one of the important, hand hygiene, face mask, distancing. Even if you go like hygiene at the home, cookings, everything, that is, if it is taken care of, a lot of disease. And the second is a screening for the blood pressure, screening for the sugar, screening for some of the common disease like cancer. So they are not very cost effective, and they just require a communication. And one of the important component of the doctor is the communication. With the reverse telemedicine, we are also teaching and guiding them how to approach the patient with a good quality communication. And even when we are talking about the faculty development, teachers training, so we have a recording of all the teachers, and with the consent of the teachers, we have allotted these teachers' presentations and the videos to some of the senior faculty member to give the feedback. And this feedback is then shared with the faculty members. And they say that whether it is okay, whatever reflection or the feedback they have received is adequate to change them, and they have accepted it. So again, this is a process which can be continued. So online teaching also give an opportunity to record and share the recording with the senior most or close person on whom you can trust, or even the mentor. So mentor can guide you. Okay, you have started very fast, but you ended abruptly, or you have taken a lot of time. You have a lot of presentation. You have a lot of slides in your presentation. You can minimize these slides to some few. You can highlight these slides. So these type of reflections are also going to help the teachers. And I think this is very important for the teachers learning. Not having the course which run for 3 days, a basic education course for 3 days or 7 days or 15 days or 6 months is not enough. It is a continuous process of refinement of the teacher. So I think this online is also giving that opportunity also. Dr. Satyendra.
Yes, sir, because the same problem we are facing when we want to give the students because in the B.Ed program we prepare the teachers for the school, and when really they are not handling the students, so they will not learn. So somehow the core courses or the basic courses of any program could be taught online. And I want to quote here just on 30th March, UGC gave our notification regarding the 40% of the credits of the courses or programs could be offered to the SWAYAM platform. And that can be reflected in the grade cards of the student. So I think these 40% credits just are of the basic information or basic learning about any program. But for the practical learning, for the in-hand practice and the learning, so definitely we have to move on the offline classes or the contact classes or the other types of notes. And just before that session, we were discussing about the NEP 2020. So again, one point I want to highlight here, it is talking about the credit bank. And it is proposing the facility for the student to leaving and joining the courses as per their convenience. After 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, there is some structures is given. So we can provide the certificate, diploma, degree, and the research degree certificate to the students. So, but here I want to highlight one problem which we are discussing among our faculty members. So we are talking about the credit bank. Suppose someone is studying in the Galgotias University, and after 1 year he or she left the university and he or she joins any other university like you or in your college. So now how that credit will be mapped? It is the possibility that the courses which we are teaching in the first year, maybe you are teaching at the second year or the third year. So the student which is leaving the Galgotias from the first year, he or she may again read the same course in the second year or the third year, or the vice versa may be possible. So how these type of problems may be handled by the government? So I think the online classes, how could compensate these type of problem, or how the other activities could be done on the recommendation of the NEP. So these are some 2 points I want to highlight or want to notice of the person, the concerns. So please.
Actually, NEP says that it is a policy only, and they have given a minimal guidelines, and you can go beyond that also. And the more importance is given to development of some of the skills, age appropriate skills. Like children, they have to specific skills. When they become older, if they go to a professional course, they should have the specific skills. So competency is where it is very important that credit transfer is also one of the way in which we can transfer the credits. If he has acquired some skills, it can be transferred to the other university if he wants to do another course. So this way we can do it. And online is not an answer, but I think blended is one of the answer. At AIMS Jodhpur, we were the first to call back the students back to the hostel and to the practicals. That is in June itself, we started with their offline classes also. And again, if we follow all the routines, practices of the coronavirus, if we know more about the corona, we can take precaution. We hardly found more than 3 or 4 students become positive. So we are having all offline classes since June 2020. And whereas the other people are facing problems because of the travel and other, and they don't have the facility for caring for these children or these students. But I think this model, if we do a strategically approach to the students, we can prevent them from the corona also. At the same time, we continue with the blended learning, that is the offline and online both. So some of these material can be provided beforehand. Depending on the internet, they can download anytime. And in the classroom, we can minimize the time duration with the interaction to 15-20 minutes only.
I think here the issue is not replacing one with the other, but it is more of how to look at how one can complement the other and enhance the effects of the other, which is what we have realized because we were pushed against a wall and made to do things online. Probably all of us would not have been so much for it if there was not a corona which drove us to do this. With the IT field and the corporates, they were going to do this because they had to connect over large distances, time differences, and that was the only way they could do it. Now, because we were forced to do it, we have learned, and the learning has been that because we are a little aware of the technology and able to do it, traditional methods can be complemented with this and made much more effective, wherein we can have a relook at how much infrastructure or the money that goes. Normally, managements put in a lot of money into building; they're happy with that. But if it comes to faculty development, they may not be putting as much. Now they will have got a chance to relook because apex bodies will also redefine the standards that are required, because honestly, you don't need so much infrastructure because it can be done with much lesser. We can put that money to better use, like getting infrastructure for better connectivity and things like that. So I think it's more of how each complement and make learning teaching a much better process. That's what is our learning from this experience.
Absolutely.
The other thing somebody said, I think I saw a question, how do you look at training teachers to take up this sort of a thing? What we found was the older people who are not so tech savvy were the ones who found difficulty in adapting to this easily and also creating content. We were all very familiar with making PPTs, but making curated content with videos and merging them, making them, that we were not all very good at because it's very time consuming also. So we found that making teaching buddies, like you have students learning buddies, teaching buddies wherein there is a youngster who may not be so, or may not be so good with the subject matter, not so experienced, I wouldn't say good or bad, and a teacher who's been teaching the subject for long, very good with all the pedagogical aspects. Now, when you team them together, whatever lacuna is there in the elder with respect to technology is made up for with the youngster who will, do all the creating the content part of it. And that way we were able to, deliver good content that way.
Yeah, that's good. Quickly, we're almost out of time. One interesting question: how did you handle internships? If somebody wants to take that.
Yeah, basically, internship is again a practical exposure, and here again there comes the importance role of mentorship. So mentorship is different from the teaching. The teachers look after the many students at a time, but the interns are exposed to certain group of teachers. And I think if the student and make the students ask more questions, it will become more fruitful. So I think with the online, we can also guide the students about the internship, various areas in which he has to work, and whether there is a need for further training and further requirement in the training or practical is required. Sapna.
Thank you, sir.
So in terms of the management education, what happens is both the summer internship and winter internship have a very critical role, because that gives students a lot of hands-on experience in terms of the practical knowledge which he's picked up from the classroom. It gives him a chance to apply those. So last year, what we did was to quickly reach out to a lot of companies, asking if they would be willing to support the cause of internships and virtual internships. Thankfully, we had a good number of them. But we also had a good number which said that they would not be happy. For instance, those which were on the marketing side, business development side, those internships did not come through. So we got in a concept called as SIRP, which is a summer internship research project, where the faculty gave a problem statement, and the problem statement could be from a society-based problem statement. It could be something which we have seen in the college ecosystem, some kind of a pain point which an entrepreneur could have. So the faculty in turn gave a problem statement to the student, which was called as an SIRP, and they kept monitoring it. So there was an external mentor and of course a faculty internal mentor. So we addressed it by way of having two formats. One was the internship which came from corporates, and one was what we evolved as a SIRP, which is a research project.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks. That was interesting. So I think we are just over a couple of minutes over time. So thanks everyone for attending. We will also have a report that we have from the survey that we'll send out to everyone who's registered, with also a link to this webinar. It will be hosted shortly. Hopefully by tomorrow, we should be able to send it out to all the attendees. And I know there were a lot of other questions that came in. Hopefully we will be able to do another webinar soon enough to answer some of those questions, some very interesting questions, but we don't have the time for it. But we will try and answer them as best as we can as we go along. So thanks everyone. And thanks to the panelists. It was great having you, and really appreciate you spending the time.
Thank you, Sapna. And thank you. A lot of interesting questions are there.
Yeah, yes, there are a lot of interesting questions, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Swapna. Thank you, all the panelists.
Thank you, everyone.